able to get out of the hospital. I'm not going to be able to get Simpson.
Is the patient in the car?
He is. I thought she was breathing, but I don't think she's breathing.
Okay, can you pull over? Because we're going to start CPR.
No. Oh, this poor girl. This poor wee girl.
I need you to stay on the line with me.
You're watching Totally True Crime.
Totally True Crime.
Katie Simpson was a special human being. She grew up in County Armagh in Northern Ireland. It's a beautiful place with so much greenery, wildlife, and a sense of community. Katie had 2 sisters, and all of them loved to play outside. And when they were old enough, they started to learn how to ride horses. But for Katie, it became one of her biggest passions. When she finished school, she got a job in a stable yard, and she would spend hours looking after the horses, riding them, show jumping, and socialising with others from the horse riding community. In 2020, Katie had started to see a boy she met through the riding community. His name was Shane McCluskey. Katie was living with her sister Christina, her brother-in-law Jonathan Creswell, and their 2 children. Jonathan was also part of the horse riding community. But on Saturday the 1st of August 2020, Katie stayed at her mother's house with her new partner Shane. Shane left the next morning, and after he left, Katie sent him this message. "I'm glad you came." Shane replied with "I am too." But then, something changed, and Katie asked Shane to hide the fact they'd spent the night together. Katie was not married. She did not have another boyfriend. Her parents were okay with Shane staying over, and Shane didn't have any other partners. So why did she want their relationship to be hidden? Shane didn't hear from Katie for the rest of the day. In fact, he didn't ever hear from her again. At 8:18 a.m. on the 3rd of August 2020, Jonathan Creswell, Katie's brother-in-law, arrived home after dropping his 2 young children to his mother's. He was on the phone to a woman he knew. Her name was Hayley Robb, and as Jonathan walked through the front door, he screamed to Hayley that he could see Katie hanging. He told her to call 999, and she gave the operator Jonathan's phone number. By this time, he had got Katie down and was driving her to the local hospital.
I'm on the way to the Galvin Hospital. I'm not going to be able to get Simpson.
Is the patient in the car?
He is. I thought she was breathing, but I don't think she's breathing.
Okay, even if you can pull over. Are you in the car at the moment? Is the car moving?
I'm driving though.
Okay. Yes, can you pull over? Because we're going to start CPR.
No. Oh, this poor girl. This poor wee girl.
I need you to stay on the line with me. How old is she?
Sorry, darling.
How old is she?
She's only 20.
The operator tells Jonathan to pull over and to start giving Katie CPR.
Okay, just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just count out loud for me, just so I know you're doing the right rhythm there.
2, 3, 4.
Paramedics arrive on the scene, but when they examined Katie, they found that she had no heartbeat and she wasn't breathing. They also noticed that she was only wearing underwear on her bottom half. She was taken to the hospital and placed on life support, and it was then that her family got the devastating news that their incredible daughter and talented sister was fighting for her life. They had to hear that she'd been found hanging and tried to come to terms with that, as well as hoping and praying that Katie would recover. But she never did. Katie Simpson died 6 days after she was found, on the 9th of August 2020. She was just 21 years old. As news started to travel that Katie had died by suicide, everyone who knew her was in utter disbelief. She was loved, she had a new romance, a job she enjoyed, and a social circle of like-minded people who she adored. Suicide is often met with complete shock. We never know what internal battles people are facing. And with Katie, there had been absolutely no signs that anyone could identify that made them think she'd wanted to end her life. Katie's post-mortem revealed some injuries that weren't conducive to hanging. She had bruises on her limbs, but they were explained away by two people: Jonathan Creswell, her brother-in-law, and a woman called Rose de Montmorency Wright. Both of them said that they'd seen her fall off a horse and that those bruises were the result of the fall. But the pathologist said that the pattern of bruising didn't fit with falling from a horse. Instead, they looked like they'd been made by a rod or something similar. It was like she'd been struck. She had bruising on her thigh and she'd been bleeding from her private parts. She also had defensive wounds on her hands. The pathologist said that she could have died by hanging, but stressed the conclusion has only come from statements given by Jonathan Creswell and Hayley Robb, the woman that Jonathan was on the phone to when he found her. This conclusion was not determined from her injuries. A forensic post-mortem was also ordered and a police officer attended. The officer noted that DNA swabs were being done and they would help determine if Katie had been sexually assaulted. The officers were shocked when Katie's death was ruled as non-suspicious. As per tradition, a wake was held in Katie's mother's home, and Katie's body was placed in a coffin in her beloved riding jacket. Her niece placed a picture she'd drawn for her into the coffin, and her family and friends paid their respects. They were consumed by grief, and Katie was laid to rest. But this is not the end of Katie's story, because Katie Simpson did not die by suicide. She was murdered. Who killed Katie Simpson? The answer to that question is her brother-in-law, Jonathan Creswell. Jonathan, known to some as Johnny, was a firm pillar in the riding community, and whilst he did have a talent for horse riding, he was perceived by many as a sleaze, a creep, and arrogant. He was loud and brash, constantly drawing attention towards his outlandish behaviour. But his dark side would reveal itself frequently. The riding community was full of women and girls, and Jonathan used it as his hunting ground. He would seduce women and underage girls, often becoming violent towards them. In 2008, he met a girl called Abigail. He charmed her with his humour and thoughtful actions, though these were a facade. They struck up a relationship which quickly turned violent. On Valentine's Day, he beat her up in his car and he threatened to kill her. His violence continued throughout his relationship with her. On one occasion, after reading a message from an old school friend on her phone, he drove her to the woods and threatened to kill her and went on to attack her for hours, just because this friend was a male. Jonathan would often choke Abigail, knowing that it terrified her. 9 months later, Abigail found the strength to go to the police, and she made a 19-page statement documenting the abuse she had received from Jonathan. The following year, Jonathan was sentenced to 6 months in prison. But upon his release, he immersed himself right back into the riding community, even getting a gig as an actor on a television advert for the Grand National. Whilst many stayed away from him, many others in the community stood by him. He was given a welcome home party thrown by some of his fellow riders, even though they knew he'd been in prison for abusing and strangling a young woman. Jonathan continued to infiltrate the lives of women, and eventually he formed a relationship with Christina, Katie's sister, and they had 2 children together. But their relationship was not a happy one. Jonathan exercised extreme coercive control towards Christina, but her fear of Jonathan meant that she never confided in anyone. What was also so incredibly disturbing was that Jonathan had been grooming her sister Katie from the age of 10 years old. It was because of this that at the age of 18, Jonathan convinced Katie to move into their family home. She would visit her mother, but tell her not to tell anyone that she'd been there. Her mother always believed that this is because she thought Katie was skiving off work, but the reality was far worse. Jonathan was controlling every aspect of both Katie and Christina's lives. He had the passwords to their bank accounts, their social media profiles and their phones, and their family had no idea. Jonathan didn't only have them under his control, he was also in other secret, controlling and abusive relationships with women and girls who worked in the stable yard. He would have sex in the stables with some of them, whilst others watched out for him. People were scared of Jonathan Creswell. On the night Katie had stayed at her mother's house with her new partner Shane, Jonathan had sent Katie a message on Snapchat. It said, "You need to reply to my snap right effing now." This had been why she hadn't wanted Shane to tell anyone about their new relationship. Jonathan Creswell was told that Shane's car had been seen driving away from Katie's mother's house, and it sent him into a jealous rage. Katie asked Shane to hide all their messages and any evidence that they'd been together. But Shane messaged her and said, "Katie, is it not just easier to say the truth? This makes me look really bad." She replied, "No way. He'll go crazy. Please don't. He'll kill me." Katie then went on to a horse show, and sure enough, Jonathan Creswell turned up. When the show was over, he made Katie leave in the back of a horse box with him, with their friend, Rose de Montmorency Wright, though she was not in the back of the horse box with them. She was driving. They first travelled to a horse yard that belonged to another woman called Jill Robinson. Jonathan and Katie then left the yard together, and they were gone for hours, driving for miles and miles. During this time, Katie's mobile phone showed no activity. But at that time, Jonathan was in possession of Katie's phone. He'd come across a message from Shane that confirmed that he and Katie were in a romantic relationship. This fueled Jonathan's rage further, and he assaulted Katie multiple times. They eventually arrived back home, and Jonathan spent most of the night in Katie's bedroom, whilst his partner, Katie's sister Christina, slept in the room next door with their 2 children. In the morning, as she got ready for work, Christina saw her husband and her sister in bed together. This was at 4:30 a.m, and she left for work at 6 a.m. Christina was too scared to confront her husband. Around 7:15 a.m, Shane tried to call Katie after countless messages he sent her went unanswered. But those messages were read. They were read by Jonathan. Furious, Jonathan then attacked Katie and started strangling her. His 3-year-old and 6-month-old baby were in the house at the time. Jonathan then drove his children to his mother's, and then he came back to the house whilst he was on the phone to Hayley Robb, who he was due to meet that morning for sex. And whilst he was on that call, he pretended to find Katie hanging. He then put Katie in his car and drove her to the nearest hospital. It was then that he called for an ambulance and pretended to do CPR.
Okay, just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just count out loud for me, just so I know you're doing the right rhythm there.
2, 3, 4.
When they arrived at the hospital, only immediate family were allowed by Katie's bedside, She was placed on life support, and because it was August 2020, COVID restrictions meant that only a few people were allowed to be with her. One of those people was Jonathan Creswell. Katie couldn't escape Jonathan, even as she lay dying in her hospital bed. But Jonathan had women who were prepared to do anything for him. Whilst Katie's family kept vigil by her bedside, Jonathan returned home, where he met up with Hayley Robb. She helped Jonathan clean the crime scene, including some of Katie's blood. She hid Jonathan's bloodied clothes in the back of her car and then drove him back to the hospital. The police asked Jonathan where Katie's mobile phone was. He said that she didn't have one. They said they wanted to search his home, and he deliberately gave them the wrong door number. The medical staff were documenting marks that they found on Katie's body: the bruise on her thigh, the bleeding from her private parts, and the bruises on her limbs. One of the nurses was so concerned about her injuries and Jonathan's constant presence at Katie's bedside that she went to the police station and begged them to treat him as a suspect. They looked up Jonathan's previous criminal history, and in error, the officer only saw traffic offences. He didn't see that he'd been in prison for 6 months for abusing and threatening to kill his ex-partner. So Jonathan continued to be allowed to be with Katie at her bedside, alongside her mother and sisters, as she took her last breath. At Katie's funeral, Jonathan was one of the people who carried her coffin. He dominated the funeral, shaking hands with mourners and drawing attention to himself. But not everyone was fooled, and some of the mourners started to suspect that Jonathan was involved in Katie's death. After her funeral, more and more people who knew Katie and Jonathan had time to reflect on the whole horrific situation, and they started asking questions. Katie's mother, Nolene, went to the police and said she was having serious doubts that Katie's death was a suicide, and questioned why she would take her own life, wearing so little clothes, knowing that she would be found. Police officers started to also ask questions and question the decision that had been made to rule Katie's death as non-suspicious. Their resistance by their superiors and their pleas to investigate her death went ignored. But they continued to pile the pressure onto them, and eventually they started to consider that they might have got it wrong, and they looked into Katie Simpson's death again. A few weeks later, they arrested Jonathan Creswell on suspicion of Katie Simpson's rape and murder, and he was subsequently charged. Almost instantly, he admitted to burying Katie's phone, but he did not admit to killing her. Unbelievably, this dangerous man, with previous convictions for strangling a woman, was let out on bail. Katie's loved ones couldn't believe it. But what was even more unbelievable was that Jonathan still had the support of some of the riding community. He was seen with underage teenage girls in his car whilst he was out on bail. Whilst Jonathan awaited trial, 3 women were given suspended sentences for helping him cover up Katie's murder. They were Hayley Robb, Jill Robinson, and Rose de Montmorency Wright. Jill Robinson had also covered up for him when he strangled his ex-girlfriend Abigail. Other details regarding Jonathan's abuse and control of all of these women, plus others, started to emerge. Rose had also lived with Jonathan and Christina in the past, and Jonathan often called Rose his queen. Many of these women also took out huge loans for him, including Katie. Jonathan had made Katie take out a £10,000 loan, and another woman had taken out a £15,000 loan just for him. Jonathan had even asked Katie's mother for money when they were in hospital, as her daughter lay dying on life support. Jonathan Creswell's trial started in April 2024, but the trial only lasted one day, because on the second day of his trial, Jonathan was found dead in his home. He had taken his own life.
We did not do enough initially in responding to some of the concerns that were being raised. Even our systems failed to identify Cresswell's previous significant and related serious offending. In my view, this is less about individual officers' actions and more about this organisation not getting this right, and that's not acceptable. I can't apologise enough to the family for the delay in getting the right response, which happened 4 months later.
Katie's mother paid tribute to her outside the court.
It's heartbreaking to know the suffering that monster put Katie through. You can't imagine anyone could do such a thing, and Katie would have tried her hardest to fight back because she loved life. Not having a trial has left an overwhelming sense of injustice. It's heartbreaking to know we'll never see Katie smile again. Katie's passion for horses, fearless talent, and her love for her family and friends, and her laugh will be the memories that we will keep.
Katie Simpson will forever be remembered as a talented, loved, and incredible woman. Jonathan Cresswell will be remembered as a coward, a bully, an abuser, and a murderer. If you or somebody you know is struggling with a controlling or abusive relationship, please see the description for organisations that can help offer support.